If a pedestrian is walking not on a crosswalk and they're hit by a car, can they still bring a case and recover?
My name is Eric Mauser. This is Tom Graham. We are personal injury lawyers in Miami, Florida. Thanks for stopping by our channel where we talk about all things personal injury and all kinds of issues related to PI cases.
Pedestrian accidents can happen all the time, really. I mean, our society, we're like a little ant farm with humans crawling all over the place, right? So you get people that kind of will cross through a street, maybe at an unmarked spot, and they get hit by a car. Or you get people walking on the side of a street or maybe changing a tire, they get hit by a car. You get people in crosswalks with the right of way and they end up getting hit by the car. So, there's a lot of different fact patterns, but does it make a difference what happened and where they are? And is there any rule that says if you're not in a crosswalk, you can't recover?
Yes, I think it does matter where this pedestrian is. If a pedestrian is in the crosswalk with the light and they have the right of way and somebody hits them, I think the other car is going to be 100% liable, right? So you can apportion fault depending on what's going on. If there's a pedestrian crossing, let's say, a highway at night with no lighting, not at a crosswalk, there might be some liability on them for making a bad decision, crossing a dangerous highway when it's dark in an area where they're not supposed to cross, and then they get hit by somebody. So I think, even though I think the car is still at fault in that scenario for hitting a person, and they have the duty to drive safely and keep a lookout, but that pedestrian may have contributed somewhat. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's fact specific. Something interesting that I heard recently, you know how a lot of crosswalks have that button that pedestrians can push and then it'll flash and then they can know that they can walk across? Well, apparently the state is removing a lot of those types of setups because pedestrians are thinking, once I hit and it's blinking, I can go, and the cars aren't thinking that. So people are relying on those lights flashing and crossing and just getting blasted by cars left and right. So the state is actually removing those blinking lights because it seems like it's making things less safe and making pedestrians maybe take more risks than they would otherwise.
So what are some steps to take right after a pedestrian accident? Well, you definitely want to hire a lawyer, because if you're a pedestrian and you get struck at an intersection or on a street, you're going to want to look around for surveillance. If there's surveillance, you're going to need a lawyer and an investigator to get this. If it comes from a gas station or 7-Eleven or a grocery store, you're going to need to get those cameras. You're going to need to track down managers, anybody's in control of those cameras, and usually a lawyer and an investigator can do that right away. And of course, if you're in a pedestrian accident, chances are you're going to be injured from getting struck by a car. So you need to be at a hospital. You need to go to the hospital. You need to seek medical treatment immediately. So after you've been in a pedestrian accident, what's the carrier going to do? I think the carrier is going to want to determine liability. They're going to try to understand the facts, how the crash happened, where was the pedestrian standing, what was the driver doing. The carrier is going to want to know about video. And of course, the carrier is going to want to know about injuries. Was this a serious incident or not? And of course, you're going to want to hire a law firm so you know how much insurance is involved and how to structure the case and get proper medical treatment.
And interestingly enough, I think the recent tort reform law change might actually have a pretty big bearing on a lot of our pedestrian cases, which unfortunately you oftentimes see catastrophic injuries, right? Because it's car versus human and who's going to win there, right? But there was a change in law not too long ago that a lot of people might not be aware of. In Florida, it used to be you would be able to get compensated for your injuries based on what's called pure comparative fault. So let's say you're walking not at a crosswalk and you get hit by a car, but a jury might think, well, it's 60% your fault, 40% the driver's fault because you weren't in the crosswalk and it was night, but you could still recover for that 40%. Now, under this new law change, if you are anything above 50, you don't get a dime, you don't get anything. So basically, I think that now it'll be more challenging for injured pedestrians to make those claims, even if it's kind of a coin toss because of the tort reform law, which is pretty harsh and probably can be exemplified in these types of cases.
Yeah, and I think it's another reason why pedestrians should lawyer up right away so you can get investigators and try to preserve any evidence such as videos. You're going to want to prove what happened and to make sure the carrier is not going to try to put all the liability back on you.
Absolutely. So insurance is a big problem in Florida. People want to do what's right? But the insurance companies, they really don't. They want to make money. And so one of the ways that they do that is they charge exorbitant premiums, and then people will pay for the very smallest amount of coverage they can. So the typical person in Florida, they're doing their best, right? But they can only afford or only want to pay for like a $10,000 bodily injury policy. You can imagine if you get hit by a car, that $10,000 in bodily injury that the driver that hit you, that's eaten up by the time the EMS puts their foot on the floor, right? I mean, that's going to be gone almost instantly, and your bills are going to be really, really high. So what we tell people is you should always have what's called uninsured or uninsured motorist. And that is a policy of insurance that will cover you. You take it out on yourself and your family, and it will cover you if the other driver doesn't have insurance or they have insufficient insurance. And I think the necessity for this type of insurance is just exemplified by automobile pedestrian cases, because we see so many times people are driving around and they don't have insurance or they have very small amounts of insurance, and these are massive injuries. If you have your own carrier covering you, then when you're hurt in such a situation, you can still recover and you're not just left with these massive bills and no one to look to pay.
Yeah, so I think what Tom is saying is, if you get hit by a car and you're a pedestrian, you can use your own coverage, your own insurance, if you bought the right kind of car insurance. And remember, in Florida, everybody thinks, oh, I bought full coverage. That's wrong, that's false, it's a misnomer, misunderstanding. It's actually just a phenomenon that we have going on in Florida. If you think you bought full coverage, think again. You don't know what you're talking about. You need to consult with either an insurance agent or a lawyer who can review your policy. And then we can tell you if you really bought full coverage, because full coverage doesn't include what Tom is talking about, uninsured motorists or underinsured motorists, UM. And that's what protects you if you get hit by somebody without insurance.
So UM, not University of Miami, uninsured motorist.
You got to have UM in Florida. In fact, you should have UM no matter what state you're in.
You should. I'm Tom Graham, and I'm here with my law partner, Eric Mausner. We love personal injury, and we love the people we represent. If you have questions or comments or thoughts about this episode, feel free to put a comment below the video or contact us. We're always happy to discuss these things.